Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
Joining us this week to discuss the sad passing of actor Bill Paxton is Allison Joyland from Milwaukee Ghosts.
Hi, everybody.
And UFO author and screenwriter Mark O'Connell. Thanks for joining us again, Mark.
Thanks for inviting me back, Allison. It's great to be here.
Yes. We wanted to talk about Bill Paxton today, really because, number one, he was a great genre actor.
Yeah.
You know, I think when it comes to like science fiction and horror, Bill Paxton's the kind, he just has showed up in every movie. He's been killed by an alien, a predator, and the Terminator.
Quite a repertoire.
Yeah. And I mean, you find him in like so many different genre films. I guess I felt a personal loss, you know, and we'll get more to his history and talk a little bit. And Mark had known him personally, so that's why we wanted to have Mark on the show particularly to talk about him. But I felt the personal loss of Bill Paxton. I used to have these aliens quotes in buttons that I wore on like a jean jacket in high school.
Because you're just that cool.
I was just that cool. But I got them at Gen Con, which was when they had aliens like role-playing game. But it had like Express Elevator to Hell going down. Like I had that on there, and I had like a Game Over Man button on there. And so Bill Hudson's character in Aliens was Hudson. He was the, I guess to say, defeatist colonial marine, the most of all of the space marines. He was the one who was the most defeatist because every time a new problem happened, he'd just be like, "We're gonna die, man. That's it. We're dead. Game over, man." Like the whole thing. Anyway. So to talk a little bit about him, born May 17th, 1955. He's a Texan. And moved to California and just started to get into acting, directing, things like that. I was doing some research on him, and I'd known this before, but I forgot about it. He's the guy that directed the Roly Poly Fish Heads video on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, I hadn't known that. I mean, that was really a surprise for me. You know, it's a short that I guess I know too well. It really had an impression on us as kids. And I was really surprised to learn that Bill Paxton directed that because it's kind of eternal in a way. And you should definitely link to that in the show notes. We will.
You can put the whole because the whole video is on YouTube. But if you guys don't remember what it is, it's this. Just think fish heads, roly poly fish heads, and it's like in the video, it's fish like playing baseball or at the beach, and it's just this classic like late 70s. And they film it in California, obviously. And it's a song that was on Dr. Demento. And it's just this people acting weird, looking weird.
Avant-garde.
When you think about music videos and how music videos used to be, which was a lot of times was just weird people showing up places and looking at the camera, that's what the Fish Heads video is.
That's such a good description, yeah. Yeah, I'm a big Dr. Demento fan from way back. So Fish Heads is definitely part of my youth.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Demento on LPX.
Right.
Sunday nights, right? Was it Sunday nights?
Yeah, Sunday nights from 10 to midnight. I'd have to pretend to go to sleep and then get on bed and sneak over to the radio and turn it on real low to listen to Dr. Demento. And hope that my brother's sleeping.
You can really tell that we're all from the same hometown. Maybe that was a Big Ben thing. We're dying of boredom in Dullsville.
Oh,
Dr. Demento,
yes,
is that?
I think
that was always a classic. The Dr. Demento business, the fish heads, and so Bill Paxton like gets into like weird outsider culture right away in his career, you know, and I think that most of us know him from the various like the James Cameron films that he was in because he's number one. He's the first person who is murdered by the Terminator when the Terminator comes back. So if you guys remember the scene in the first Terminator, they repeat this scene. Bill Paxton's not in the Terminator Genesis, but they repeat this scene in Terminator Genesis. So the Terminator comes back and he shows up like at Griffith Park in Los Angeles. And that's a location that's used in a like 1,000 different movies. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's an observatory on top of a hill. It's also haunted.
La La Land.
Oh, they do. I haven't seen La La Land, so they show it in La La Land?
Big number that takes place at the Griffith Park, inside and outside the Griffith Park Observatory in La La Land.
Okay, cool. And La La Land, like, the Terminator doesn't show up and kill Ryan Gosling or anything like that, does he? Is that the big scene?
No, we can hope.
Did I spoil the movie?
It's close to that. Close to that.
All right. Give me the keys, your clothes, your keys, your motorcycle. And Ryan, what do you mean? And he's got a fist to his chest. Okay. But that's the thing is, like, how could one guy be around so many different and interesting films that are really specific to they always made that joke that, Bill Pullman versus Bill Paxton. Like, how do you tell them apart? And I think it's just, Bill Pullman hasn't been in as many, he's been in some classics, Spaceballs, obviously. Independence Day, yeah. But
what about
like
the Serpent and the Rainbow? We don't forget that one.
Oh my God, I forgot he was in the Serpent and the Rainbow. Okay, but he hasn't been as close to the center of the action as Bill Paxton was.
Right.
So I always thought that, like, he was always kind of a side character. He's Chet in Weird Science, the guy that gets turned into a big pile of poop at the end.
Well, see, I'm just surprised, looking through his filmography, that he was in so many different movies, not just genre movies, but just the incredible amount of work that he got. And I'm just shocked that he died. I was like, you were texting me about, hey, let's do an episode about Bill Paxton. I'm like, why? And you're like, he's dead. What? And that was really, really a shock to me. And so, Mike, he was the first to die in the Terminator movie. So he was like that punk rock guy.
Yeah.
So what happened? Can you rewind for us? It's been a while.
Okay, and so this is probably the first time I ever saw. The first time I probably ever saw Bill Paxton was the Fish Heads video. Like, because I was probably 6 years old or 5 years old. It's on Saturday Night Live, and I'm like, oh, well, like, why is this so weird? And Mom's probably going, "What is this?"
Yeah,
like,
well,
why?
you let us watch SNL, okay?
Yeah, it's true.
Right.
But she'd be like, why? Why are they doing that? What's with the fish heads? This is stupid. And then we'd be laughing, and then she just wouldn't get it. And I love her. But okay, so you'd probably see the first Terminator. It's the first time I saw Bill Paxton. And so what happens is Arnold, he gets all buck naked. And this is the glory days of Arnold, like 1983, when he's just coming off Mr. Universe, and he's still, like, now.
He's still pretty good.
He still is pretty good, but he's a little saggy, I'm not what I used to be. But he comes from the future. He shows up in that big ball of lightning or whatever. And then he's at the observatory. And, like, I don't know if punk rock guys would ever, like, hang out at the Griffith Park Observatory. I wasn't there I think it's more tourists, but okay. Mark, were you there at all in the early 80s? Was it a punk rock hangout? Okay. Yeah. Right. So I guess all the science geeks had mohawks, and they were so you have the opening scene, and then you have three people approach the Terminator, and one is Bill Paxton. The other is Brian. I can't remember his last name, but he played like the alien bounty hunter in the X-Files. He's like a really tall, ugly dude that's in a lot of different movies.
Yeah.
And he's the alien bounty hunter in the X-Files. He was in this horrible show called Kindred the Embraced.
I love Kindred. Come on. I love Kindred the Embraced.
So he's in that show. But he's you have two guys who eventually would be in a lot of genre shows. And then Bill Paxton says something obnoxious to Arnold when Arnold's like, "Give me your clothes." And he's like, "No, what are you going to do about it?" And then Arnold shoves like a pipe through him.
Oh, okay. So real dramatic. Well, you got to go out, go out dramatically.
Right, yeah, he does. So he goes out in a big way. So he's the first person that the Terminator kills in the Terminator. And it's just a nice memory. But the thing is, that stretch in the 80s, though, so many influential films. And I guess his way of being around it, like he doesn't get the main parts. He doesn't really get the main parts until Twister.
Yeah, Twister was a pivotal role.
But in the big genre films, he's always there. So the Terminator, he gets killed right away, obviously. And he's friends with James Cameron, which that doesn't hurt. to be in that wheelhouse. He's also, Aliens is probably his most famous role for a lot of people, probably his best role for a lot of people, because he really steals the scenes as Hudson, getting all the great lines in Aliens, and that's part of, James Cameron did The Terminator, does Aliens, and James Cameron's girlfriend, or he's always married and like getting divorced and then finding the next girl when you read about James Cameron.
His paramour.
So James Cameron's paramour is Catherine Bigelow, who eventually won the Best Picture for the Hurt Locker or whatever, that was a good movie too, if you're into war movies. But my favorite work of hers is a movie called Near Dark. And
tell us about
Bill
it.
Paxton. Oh, it's about vampires roaming around the wild, like not the Wild West, but the modern West. It's got Adrian Pasdar is the main character, who eventually will be in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's the general in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., who Bill Paxton appeared there. And so he's a guy that falls in love with a pretty blonde girl. And what happens to her is that she's a vampire, and she starts turning him into a vampire. So there's this whole thing where he starts going around with this gang of vampires, and one of the vampires is Lance Henriksen as this old, mean Confederate vampire.
From Millennium.
And from Millennium, Lance Henriksen, he's also in The Terminator. He's also in Aliens.
And every bad sci-fi movie, it seems.
Yeah, no, Lance Henriksen will he will act for food.
He was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, too.
I didn't. Oh man! So he's
kind of Francois Truffaut's silent assistant. He's always sort of hovering in the background.
Really?
Oh, okay. And just Francois Truffaut and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Obviously, Mark is a Close Encounters expert.
Right.
But Francois Truffaut is the French guy in the middle of the film that finds the World War II fighters that come in, right?
Would you say he's modeled after Jacques Vallée?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
There's more of that in my book, so I don't want to say.
Oh,
right.
Oh, and when is your book coming out? We need to have you back on for that. But
yeah.
But
I don't mean to sidetrack. It's coming out June 13th. Well, I know you can edit all this. Hi, Wendy.
Hello. Sorry, I didn't want to butt in.
No, that's all right. Okay.
I'm sorry to be late to the party, but it's good to see you again, Mark, and Allison and Mike, of course.
So we were just talking about the movie Near Dark. Mark's book's coming out in June, and we're going to have much more with Mark when that's coming out, and to be able to talk about his book on the UFO man, the Close Encounters man, J. Allen Hynek.
Awesome. I'm excited for that one.
Yes. So Near Dark is all these vampires roaming around the American West. And
instead of cowboys and aliens, it's like cowboys and vampires?
Well, it's not. They're not cowboys. It's more, it's kind of a Western, but it's set in the modern day.
All right.
So they're going to like bars in the middle of nowhere. They're staying at motels like on dusty highways. And it's the struggle of this guy, like what's going to happen? How is he gets assimilated into this vampire group, of which Bill Paxton is like the crazy, fun vampire. Once again, it's a movie. He gets all the good lines.
Is he like the leader?
No, the leader is Lance Henriksen.
Okay.
And so, anyway, this guy falls in love with this girl vampire. Then there's a big thing at the end. It's also blood transfusion. Near Dark. It's a 30-year-old movie this year, and it is one of the finest vampire films out there. So, and Bill Paxton's a main part of making it fun. And so that's what I mean. Like, whenever something really good shows up, like The Terminator, like Aliens, like Weird Science, for some reason, Bill Paxton's there. Like, how did he get there the whole time?
Yeah, and like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. too. He was a pivotal character in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well when the whole Hydra thing went down.
Right, he was there when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. actually became went from a boring show to a really good show.
So like, what happened? A real surprise.
So Bill Paxton, he always finds his way into all these things. Whether it's he's a character in the Marvel's universe. He's in the Terminator, Predator. He's in Predator 2. Which is the lesser of the Predator films. It's still pretty fun. So he always found his way to do that. Now, I think this would be a good time to get the personal remembrances of him, because while I have, like 3,000 film remembrances of him, I have no personal ones. And Mark, now you met him and you almost worked with him. Can we hear a little bit about that story?
Yeah. It needs a little background first. It concerns a feature film screenplay that I wrote in the late 90s called Doug and Dave, which was a comedy based on a true story about these two elderly British pub mates who became world famous in the early 90s when they took credit for creating all the crop circles that appear in southern England every August and September. And the story appealed to me because, first of all, because everybody wanted to believe that what they were saying was true. So many people wanted to believe, oh, yes, thank God, here's a rational explanation for the crop circles. We can stop talking about UFOs and the Earth goddess. It's just these two old drunks who are doing this. Thank God. Now we can move on. So that was a big part of the story that I found really amusing. The other part of the story that appealed to me was that their celebrity only lasted about 2 weeks. They were revealed as frauds when they were set up to create a crop circle on a British TV show, live on TV, and they couldn't do it. So they had to admit that they had been lying about the whole thing. So the idea that they had hoaxed a hoax, I thought was pretty hilarious and made for a great story. So I heavily fictionalized the story, wrote this screenplay about it, and in the early aughts, say around 2000, 2001, the script was optioned by a production company, and for a while it looked like they were going to get financing together to produce the movie, and with Bill Paxton attached to direct. And that was really, really exciting for me at that point, because this was my first movie script. I had done some TV work, but this was my first movie script that really was getting some serious attention. It looked like it might actually get made. So the idea that, a name talent like Bill Paxton was interested in directing it was just huge for me. But then that producer was not able to put together the financing, so that whole thing just kind of died down.
And so this was going to be more than just the Fish Head sequel, right?
Yes. This was going to be
Fish Heads 2 by Mark O'Connell.
Yeah. At the time, they were talking about a budget of 12 to 15 million for the movie. It was,
Wow.
Oh, man.
It was a pretty big deal. But it fell through because the producer wasn't able to secure all the financing. In the meantime, Bill went on to direct this very strange, atmospheric murder movie called Frailty.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's Matthew McConaughey. This is even before the McConaissance. This is when he was Studley the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Matthew McConaughey and Powers Booth. And it's a really, really creepy movie.
It's so good. I love that movie.
It's great. And very few people know about it or have seen it because it kind of came and went when it was first released. But it was Bill's first feature film directing job, and for a first timer, I thought he did incredibly well. The movie just oozes creepiness from
so disturbing.
Yeah, it's really a nasty, creepy movie. So,
and it's a Texas movie too. So I think he used some of that part of his roots of growing up in Texas. And there's like Western movies, and there's New York movies, there's comedy, and there really is a genre now, especially with the Hell and High Water. If you guys saw that movie from last year, there's like a Texas movie, and it's understanding the topography and the weather and all that kind of stuff that gives you that feeling of. Especially a lot of that movie takes place like Texas in the 1970s.
Yeah, a real sense of place.
And I think he captured that really well in that particular film, Frailty. And which, I mean, even Roger Ebert gave 4 stars. Like I remember seeing it in the theater. And it's got demons. It really is a creepy one. But Mark, you're telling us that he directed Frailty instead of your movie?
Yes, I know. It's shocking.
No!
I still have a hard time with that, but that's the way the cookie crumbles, man.
Well, how did he find out about your movie? How did he get attached to it? I mean, what's the whole backstory behind that? Like, how'd you meet and stuff like that?
It was due to this first producer who had optioned my script, Doug and Dave, in in either 2000 or 2001, and she was put. Like I said, she had raised 40% of the financing for the film. She had some partners who were very well connected, and I guess what I remember from all of that was it was known in the industry that Bill Paxton really wanted to develop a career as a director. He had already done some James Cameron movies. He and Cameron were really good buddies, and from the way he described it to me, years later, Cameron sort of was his mentor and teacher. And it was sort of, real life Hollywood directing school working with James Cameron. So word was out in Hollywood at the time that Bill Paxton wanted to establish a career as a director. So this producer who had optioned my script, just went through channels and contacted him and got the script to him. And he just really loved the script and wanted to do it. So he went on to direct Frailty. And even though yes, he should have done my movie instead, I can't complain.
Of course.
I can't complain because Frailty led to his next opportunity, which came a couple of years later. Things had kind of died down with my script, Doug and Dave, for a couple of years. And then in early 2006, at this time I'm working my day job at a publishing company here in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. My office phone rings one afternoon, and I pick up the phone, say hello, and this voice says, "Mark, it's Bill Paxton. How have you been?"
Hey, that's pretty good though.
I just kind of went silent for a second or two. I probably said, "Excuse me," into the phone or something, because
Is this a prank call?
leaped out of the blue. And I just said, well, I think the first thing I actually got out of my mouth was, how did you get this phone number? And turned out he had gotten back in touch with that producer from a couple of years earlier and gotten my contact info from her. Mm-hmm. So once I get over my shock at having Bill Paxton on the phone in my office at the publishing company where I work, he says, listen, I'm directing a new feature for Disney. And he said, my stock is really high at Disney. They're in love with my movie. We're predicting big things for the movie. And he said, for a follow-up, they're going to let me do anything I want. And I want it to be your script, Doug and Dave.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
I was
Oh, you
amazing.
platzed,
Yeah.
I bet. Wow.
Totally.
Totally platzed.
So he says, look, he said, the movie I'm directing now is called The Greatest Game Ever Played. He goes, we're in post-production on it now, coming out in the summer. He said, my budget for Greatest Game was $24 million. He said, Disney's going to give me equal to that or more for my second feature.
Wow.
So at least $24 million for the budget. And he said, I really want to do this. He said, I love your script. I've always loved it. He said, I think it's an instant classic.
Oh,
incredible.
man.
Right. You're like, hey, from the guy that was in Aliens, you're like,
Can I
thanks.
use that
I
quote,
mean,
please?
that's another one for a button.
Instant classic.
Right. Instant classic, baby.
Bill Paxton.
So, but one of my favorite things about the story is why Bill connected with the script. So, as I mentioned, the script was about these two elderly British drinking buddies who became famous for taking credit for making crop circles. An interesting detail about these guys that I learned when I first started reading about them was that they were both landscape artists. And that just really clicked with me. I just thought, oh, well, here's the metaphor. They're landscape artists and they're creating crop circles. They're creating landscape art, literally,
Right.
on the biggest canvas you can imagine.
On a grand scale.
Yeah, and there was just something about that really clicked with me. And suddenly the story I was telling was a lot more than just a goofy story about these two goofy guys getting in trouble and lying and making fools of themselves. All of a sudden, it was a story about art and the artistic process and the nature of artistic inspiration and how art affects us. And basically, then the movie script became the question of the script became, who cares who made the crop circles? The important thing is how they affect us when we look at them and when we think about them and when we're in their presence. So who really cares who made them? So, and that's what Bill was attracted to in the script, because he told me that his dad in Texas had been a big art collector. And I think he may have even said that his dad owned an art gallery. I can't remember that. But I know he said his dad was a big art collector, and so he grew up in a household filled with art and where artists were, frequent guests at the house. So that was he was just steeped in that as he grew up. And so he saw that in my script, and that's what he was into. So I thought that was pretty cool. He and I ended up having a lot of things in common, just goofy little things that I thought was pretty neat. So I thought we clicked pretty well. I always enjoyed his calls. So for like 6 months, while he was doing post-production on Greatest Game Ever Played, he would call me up every couple of weeks and just fill me in on, okay, here's what's going on with the movies. Like, we're doing the score now. He would just give me the step-by-step on what they were doing to finish Greatest Game, and just give me an update on, here's the latest with Disney. Here's what we're looking at, for the follow-up movie. And so that was really awesome. I was getting these regular updates from Bill Paxton on not only on my movie, but the movie he was working on at that time.
That's amazing.
It was so much fun, you guys.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much fun it was to be on the receiving end of these phone calls.
Wow.
And Bill's treating me like, his creative partner.
Yeah, dispatches from Hollywood. I mean, from the field. That's so exciting.
It was pretty amazing.
Well, you guys had talked about crop circles, and he had been in a lot of genre films and paranormal stuff. Did he ever mention that he saw a UFO or anything? He's like, well,
Yeah,
crop
that's where I
circles,
was going.
Yeah, there's got to be a place. Like, did he mention any kind of weird stuff ever happening to him?
If that was the case, he never mentioned it to me. But a lot of people who experience things like that never tell a soul about it. So
That's
who knows?
so true.
Yeah.
But so we have this fun thing going for like 5 or 6 months leading up to the release of Greatest Game, and I'm psyched. I'm going to get a movie made, and it's my favorite script I've ever written, so I'm doubly psyched about that. And then Greatest Game comes out, and it flops. It absolutely tanks. It earned like $4 million on its first weekend in release. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. So that was a huge blow. That didn't necessarily wipe out my movie, though. But what happened next is where the problem started. So Greatest Game is it's a golf movie. It's about it's a true story that takes place, I think, in the context of the U.S. Open, in which a young caddy who was just an incredibly gifted golfer, a young caddy actually gets entered into the U.S. Open and beats the world champion.
Right.
So it's your classic underdog sports movie. It pushes all the right buttons. It's a really fun story. It's really inspiring. And the star, the person who played this young caddy, was Shia LaBeouf.
Ah.
Who, at the time, nobody knew who he was, except the millions of kids who watched him on the Disney Channel.
Yeah, he was Even Stevens or something?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And I know I saw that show once or twice. I don't remember anything about it, but I do remember that Shia LaBeouf was pretty funny and charming in that show. So this is his first leading role in a feature film. And the movie does disastrously. And a short time after the movie is released, Bill Paxton is invited onto a talk show on ESPN. And they start talking about the movie, The Greatest Game Ever Played. And Bill starts complaining about Disney's marketing.
Oh,
and
no.
he says, he says, here's what Disney did wrong. He said they were running commercials for my movie on the Disney Channel because they wanted to attract the people who love Shia LaBeouf. But he said, those kids aren't going to go see a golf movie.
No.
He said Disney.
Well, he's right.
Right.
He's absolutely right. He said Disney should have been advertising on your show here on ESPN. That's the audience. That's the viewer for this movie. So he was really upset about that marketing decision that Disney had made, and then he complained about it very, very loudly on ESPN, and that didn't make him any friends at Disney. So just like that, his relationship with Disney was over, at least as far as, directing another film. So that's what happened. So that's how the project died.
Oh, man.
And, so that was 2006, and I hadn't talked with Bill since then. I think we may have exchanged one or two emails over the years, but it wasn't anything more than that. But the other cool thing about that story, though, was I vacationed in Los Angeles that summer about a month before Greatest Game premiered. And Bill invited me up to, I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was about an hour north of Los Angeles.
Which could be like 2 miles from Los Angeles when you say an hour. Or it could be across the street with the way the traffic is.
Walking or driving?
Right.
What difference does it make?
Exactly. Right. Walking is faster? I don't know.
So I get an invitation up to the set of Bill's new TV show, of which I know nothing. So I get up to where they're shooting the show, and the set is this gigantic warehouse, and I walk inside, and the TV show is Big Love, the series that he did on HBO from I think it started that year, 2006. I think he was just in production on the first season at that point. So I walk into this gigantic warehouse or aircraft hangar or whatever the hell it was, just a huge building, and see that they have, I don't know if you remember much about the show Big Love, but Bill played a Mormon who had 3 wives. And the funny thing about the arrangement was that his character owned a home improvement store. So he built 3 homes right next to each other on the same street.
Right.
In the fictional world of the show, he's built these 3 homes right next to each other with his family. And none of the neighbors have apparently ever noticed anything odd. But they had built 3 full-size houses on this soundstage with full interior. I was amazed. I have never seen that kind of set for a film or TV production before. It was so elaborate. I was just stunned. So I got to spend a day. I met the show's creators. I met Chloe Sevigny. Got to hang around with Bill. Got to have lunch with Bill in his trailer. And at that point,
nice.
Totally. Yeah, it was so fun. And he's still totally psyched about Greatest Game. He thinks that's going to be a huge hit. And the big thing I remember from that conversation in his trailer was he got philosophical for a minute, and he just said, he was just talking about, it was kind of one of these how did I end up here kind of talks. Like, so here I am, I'm starting this TV series. He's like, I never saw myself doing a TV series, but here I am. So he was getting a little philosophical about his career, and I just remember at one point he said, but you know what? He said, anybody who's got a film like Apollo 13 on their credit list has had a pretty good career. He goes, all you need is one Apollo 13 on your credit list, and you've done pretty well. And I thought that was pretty cool. So clearly, if you were to ask him which movie are you most proud of, he probably would have said Apollo 13.
It's a good one.
It is. It's a great one. I would have said Mighty Joe.
It's a classic. No one gets gutted by anything in Apollo 13. Yeah. So I would depict it as my favorite, but it's a good movie.
Another one of Bill's movies that I would pick as a favorite is and it's again James Cameron, True Lies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where Bill plays the sleazy little con man who's trying to make Jamie Lee Curtis believe that he's an international spy. I thought he was hilarious in that movie.
Yeah, he wets his pants in a car with Arnold.
Yeah. Yeah. What better career moment could you have?
Right.
It's a great memory. I thought he was really a terrific guy. I think it's really too bad that his directing career never took off. Not only for my personal sake, of course, I would have loved it if it had, but for his sake, I thought the guy was really, really talented, and he, I think he I think he really wanted to develop that part of his career, and I think it's a shame that he never got to go any further.
Well, that is, and it's too bad he didn't get to make your film, which obviously we think is tragic because then we'd be talking about how sweet your movie was right now, and be like that.
I want to see that movie
Bill
anyway.
Paxton as the director of the beloved classic Doug and Dave. But one of the things I'm so as far as the kind of guy to work with, he's appearing in so many different kinds of films, so many different genre films. Directors keep coming back to him time and time again, like we said, like James Cameron, obviously. But like, what kind of personality or what kind of energy did you feel he had? Was it something? Were you like, was he an exciting person to work with and talk to, and or was he more laid back?
He was not laid back. He was always every time I talked with him, and when I met him on set, he just seemed it was sort of this combination of just being really, really excited about his work. And at the same time, like I said, on the set of Big Love, there was also just a little bit of like almost bewilderment and disbelief and sort of, damn, I'm so lucky that I have this career. I'm not sure how it happened even, but I'm so lucky. And I know he felt really, really lucky about having this fantastic, very long creative relationship and friendship with James Cameron. He mentioned that a few times too, that was such a big thing in his life. And he was like, can you imagine, Mark, I'm learning how to direct looking over James Cameron's shoulder, because the picture I got was that James Cameron was really, really generous with, letting Bill look over his shoulder and just, letting Bill just sort of be there when he was doing his work. So
what an opportunity.
Yeah, a fantastic opportunity. And, Bill just seemed like just tickled to death that he was lucky enough to have that in his life.
You know what? Guys, I cannot believe it took me this long, but I just recalled something paranormal about Bill Paxton.
Ooh.
And I don't know if you know anything about this, Mark, but so I a few years ago went on this vacation where every night we tried to stay at somewhere haunted, and it was throughout Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And so one of the places we stayed was the Hotel Schwamagon in Ashland, Wisconsin. And that's up by Lake Superior.
Yeah, so anybody out there in podcast land, Ashland, Wisconsin is the farthest you can go up in Wisconsin. You're basically in Canada. You're basically in the Arctic Circle by the time you get to Ashland, Wisconsin.
It's not quite like Bayfield, but it is up there, right? And so I wanted to stay there because I had heard about Billy Bob Thornton's ghost experience there at Hotel Schwamagon during the filming of A Simple Plan back in 1998. So
wait, hold on a second. Billy Bob Thornton had a ghost experience, and A Simple Plan is also. And A Simple Plan is also directed by Sam Raimi, the man who brought us to Evil Dead.
Yes, and who else is in A Simple Plan besides Billy Bob?
Bill Paxton.
I
forgot.
He's everywhere. So I knew that Billy Bob had seen a ghost there. But what I didn't know was that Bill Paxton had as well. That oh man, so this is just coming to me, so I didn't go back and do any research to find all the details, but we stayed there, and I wanted to, I always call and I'm like, I want the haunted room. So unfortunately though, they didn't give me Bill Paxton's room or Billy Bob's room. They gave me a room which was a suite, of course, that had been investigated by some paranormal investigators recently, and I really wanted the Billy Bob room. And would have wanted the Bill Paxton room had I known about it. But so the day after our stay, I'm talking to the front desk clerks, of course, and tell them that we stayed in the haunted room. But then I'm asking about A Simple Plan, and they say, "Oh, well, let's show you the rooms where Billy Bob and Bill Paxton stayed." And apparently, they both saw this woman in Victorian dress in the hotel, and were quite shocked about it, and I believe they did both demand to change rooms.
That's a pretty awesome story, Allison.
There you go. That's
is.
all I know. But but Bill Paxton did apparently have an interaction with a ghost in Wisconsin.
But did you see anything, Allison? Did you see the Victorian lady?
No, come on. I would have called you up like immediately. Or
I didn't know if this was recently or if this was, years ago before we talked every week.
Yeah, this was a few years ago, but I still would have.
I would have heard about it for sure.
Yeah, I would have been.
I had Mike on the speed dial. Mike, it's all real.
So no sightings for you. I'm sorry, Allison.
No, I try. I really
I always
try.
hope one of these days.
Yeah. Well, I did see that orb of light with my own eyeballs, but yeah. So I'll let you know when I see that full body apparition.
Okay.
Still holding out hope.
I'm rooting for you.
So he did have an interaction with a ghost. I know that. So we don't know if he saw a UFO. We do know he probably saw a ghost. But did your conversations with Bill ever hinge on the paranormal, Mark? I mean, did they ever get into that zone of
no, they
wondering
didn't,
about life?
Which is kind of funny because Doug and Dave is all about the paranormal.
Right.
But when we talked about the script, he, what he focused on was that, the secondary story about the artistic impulse. That was what was really, really fascinating to him. So that's what he wanted to talk about.
Right. So that's
I don't
an
remember.
interesting angle.
If we did talk about the paranormal elements, it must not have been much because I have no memory of us ever talking about that. So it would have been interesting to see how he would have handled those elements, if he had directed the movie.
Yeah, because, his choice of films, I mean, does kind of skew that way towards the paranormal, towards aliens, vampires,
science fiction,
etc. Science fiction, yeah.
Weird science, literally. Weird science.
Go.
Well, one thing I was going to say when you talk about his directorial choices, and the reason he may have been really attracted to Doug and Dave is that I think Frailty is an excellent example because that's a movie where, Mark, when you were describing it about like a series of Texas murders. And it is, but it's also got a real strong paranormal element to it. But that's kind of because it's about so Bill Paxton actually, he acts in the film too, and he plays a father that says he sees demons and has his son help him kill people that he says are demons.
Yeah.
But you never really see the people as demons, besides the things that are meant to be hallucinatory or psychedelic. It's not like, there's twists and things like that. But in the film, it's not like they're really like demons show up and it's with wings and horns. It's, like, hey, everybody, I'm a demon. So there's nothing obvious there. And so he's presenting that movie as here's a straightforward paranormal story, but we never really know if it's in everybody's head or if it's happening in real life. And so he portrays it like that. So looking at your script, that may have been something where he was really attracted to the idea that it's these guys that said they were doing it. They were hoaxing the hoax, right? They were saying, well, we're the ones that created the crop circles. So it's a way to make a movie about aliens without having to have a UFO.
I think that's interesting. I had never really seen the parallel between Doug and Dave and Frailty, but I think you're onto something there.
It's kind of like Henry James, like Turn of the Screw. If you guys are familiar with that story, Frailty reminds me of that. And also, Doug and Dave could be seen that way too. And a lot of movies go this way where they question reality, like, well, what really happened? And like, you have an observer, you have a narrator, that is unreliable in those stories. So you feel like in a way you don't really know the true story. So like, with the Turn of the Screw, it was a governess in Victorian England who believes these children that are her charges are being haunted and in imminent peril by ghosts and put into some very scary situations and so it has a tragic ending. And so you're wondering, is this just a product of some kind of psychological disorder that the governess is suffering from, or was she really right? Were these children being haunted?
Well, and that reminds me of of the phenomenal, ultra creepy twist in Frailty. When we find out at the end of the movie, Bill Paxton really wasn't crazy.
Right.
All those people that he and his sons killed, or his son, I can't remember, it was one or two. All those people really were horrible, horrible people who deserved to die.
And that's part of really what makes it, a great ending, because it's like a twist in your back after there's already a couple of twists in your back, and then you're like, oh yeah. And so you realize that these people deserve what they were getting all along. So then you get some, you get some post movie. You're like, yeah, I can feel good about enjoying that part now. But it's funny though. I was going to say that working with him, he must have been a pretty grounded fellow, because of all of the big genre movies he appeared in. We talked from Twister to the Aliens franchise to Predator 2 to like and that Big Love, which was a high level HBO series where he's with Harry Dean Stanton, plays his father in Big Love. Harry Dean Stanton, who was also famously killed by an alien in the first movie. But he does all that, and then like this week I'm enjoying some Netflix, and so I want to see some Bill Paxton classics, and he's in like this crapola movie from 2013 called The Colony. Which is just a sci-fi, low budget. It would have been on VHS. You'd have rented at the grocery store in 1992. But now that thing's a direct to Netflix. But it's him and Lawrence Fishburne, and obviously they needed a pool or something. And so they're like, oh yeah, we'll be there. And the fact is, he plays like a jerk military character, and his role isn't that big, but he makes a big impact in every scene that he's in, and so. He takes what would be like a pot boiler and there's some couple of pretty boy actors, and they're nice to look at, but they never have enough. There's no screen presence. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh my God, that girl they picked her off because she's a model or whatever. But obviously dialogue and talking isn't her strong suit. But when he comes into a scene, it elevates everything. And it's like all of a sudden he makes these actors who obviously aren't very talented, brings them up to a level where they have to react, they have to be with them, they have to be present with them, and it's a sense of fun. You can tell he's relishing his role as this mean bad guy military character, and he'll do that same kind of character in The Edge of Tomorrow, which was not a lot of people have seen it, even though it's Tom Cruise and stuff. But it's Tom Cruise's best movie, I think, in a few years, called The Edge of Tomorrow. And Bill Paxton plays essentially the same kind of gruff military commander character, but he brings the same level of intensity and enjoyment to that film, which is a great movie, to The Colony, which is the kind of thing you watch on Netflix when there's nothing, when Ancient Aliens isn't on the History Channel or whatever.
Well, here's another movie along those same lines, another Netflix or sort of direct-to-video feature film that Bill Paxton was in. I don't know when this was made, but it was called Slipstream. Have you ever heard of Slipstream? Well,
Mark Hamill.
Exactly. Dream casting. Bill Paxton, Mark Hamill, and Sir Ben Kingsley.
Ooh.
All in this bizarre science fiction future dystopia world where there's if I remember it right, the slipstream is this wind pattern that circles the globe, and it's the only way anyone can get around on the Earth anymore, to hitch a ride on the slipstream. And I can't remember anything about Bill's character. I seem to remember he had unnaturally long hair in that movie. That's about all I remember. But at the time it came out, I was kind of thrilled because I believe it was the early aughts, if I'm remembering right. And there was also a brief window in there when Ben Kingsley was interested in Doug and Dave, was interested in acting in it.
Oh, wow.
An older British actor, and that he'd be perfect for one of the characters.
And at the time I was thinking, oh my God, Bill Paxton and Ben Kingsley are in a movie together. It's a sign. It's a sign.
Oh my gosh.
Well, Slipstream, and the thing is, so Slipstream came out I believe in the early 90s or late 80s, and because I remember renting it on VHS. Yeah, I rented it on VHS at Cub Foods on Highway 100.
That's it. Your memory is just astounding.
Another thing about Doug and Dave, okay, when it looked like Doug and Dave might get made, Bill's plan, which I completely agreed with, was to go after Sean Connery and Michael Caine.
Oh, wow. That would be incredible.
That's a simple plan.
Yeah. You couldn't do that now. They're both too old. Well, I mean, Michael Caine still works all the time, but Sir Sean doesn't seem to work much these days, so I don't think it would work. But at the time, that was some pretty heavy stuff, man. Connery and Caine, it would have been their first movie together since The Man Who Would Be King.
Oh, my God. Well, that would be exciting. Ben Kingsley also, I think about that with that movie Slipstream, because it's made not too long after Ben Kingsley was in Gandhi. Best Picture, and he's obviously such a great actor in Gandhi. Mark Hamill, this is one of the few movies he top-lined since Star Wars. And it is one of those, it could have been it's more of a sleeper. It's a pretty good movie, but it's not one that a lot of people know about. But that's a good memory there. And the thing is that when you look over his IMDb and you go into some of the stuff about, he appeared in so many things, and he's always on the outskirts, but he's always memorable. He's in Tombstone. He's Kurt Russell's brother. He's one of the Earp brothers in Tombstone.
Oh. You know what I want to see him? It's that miniseries about the Hatfields and McCoys. I think that would be interesting.
Oh yeah, was he in that?
Yeah, he plays either Hatfield or McCoy. I'm not sure which, but yeah, yeah. And that was a miniseries for the History Channel or something.
Yeah, because Kevin Costner's in it, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And that's another thing too. I was going to say the grounded aspect, and that he'd go back and do that Southern stuff. That was great. You talk about the Hatfields and McCoys, or we talk about Tombstone, or he's also just in this movie called Next of Kin with Patrick Swayze as a Southern clan. I can't say the Southern. I was going to say Klansman, but that's not what I meant. But a Southern family, and they have this, a feuding kind of thing similar to Hatfield and McCoy. But it's Patrick Swayze as the lead character, and it's Liam Neeson before people knew that Liam Neeson was Irish. Before he did his, so he's got a Southern accent, and then Bill Paxton's the other cousin.
Wow.
So you got the Sways, Liam Neeson, and Wendy, you met Liam Neeson live, didn't you?
I did,
and in person.
It was the New Year's of the millennium, and he wished me a safe and prosperous New Year.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was really cool.
Fun.
Yeah, it's a long story, but it was fun. Chance encounter in New York City.
And he didn't say, but he wasn't walking up to you, and he didn't act like a, I just picture his character in Next of Kin, because I'm one of the 6 people that saw Next of Kin. I'm picturing him, Patrick Swayze, and Bill Paxton, all they with the redneck outfits, and
the tough
Patrick
guys.
Swayze's do you believe in the hereafter? Then you know what I'm here after. I think that was his big line from that movie.
He wasn't like that.
Okay, all right. And one last interesting thing about Bill Paxton that goes into more of the conspiracy theory kind of stuff is that he was there the day that JFK was assassinated.
That's right.
Wow.
Wasn't he 8 years old, though?
Yes.
So he didn't pull the trigger.
Still.
I don't think. It could happen.
Bill Paxton was on the grassy knoll.
Hand and eye coordination.
Oh my God.
Out of the 8-year-old, probably enough. Just right there.
We can say that now that he's passed. Bill Paxton was the second shooter.
Oh.
Lance Henriksen was the first shooter. He was the backup. No, but as an 8-year-old, he's in the crowd waving when President Kennedy emerges from the Hotel Texas in Fort Worth on the morning of November 22nd, 1963. And there's pictures at the 6th Floor Museum in Dallas where he can be seen on the shoulders of somebody. So he's there. Bill Paxton was so good at showing up to good movies and exciting events. He was even there for the JFK assassination.
He's there for everything.
Man, that guy is...
Yeah. So the thing is, a really fun actor and some cool memories. Thank you, Mark, for joining us and talking about your personal memories of Bill Paxton. That's really exciting because even before I saw your picture, it was funny because last Sunday when I found out he passed, I was like, oh no, that sucks. And you see all these, when they talked about it on television, they were just talking about some of his more mainstream stuff. And I was like, Bill Paxton's been in so many great like sci-fi horror films. Like he really was always riding the edges of some of the best stuff, from Near Dark to Aliens to the Terminator. He was always there. I was like, we got to talk about him on the show because he was a part of so many of the movies that influenced the things that we discuss on the program. And then when I saw that you had a relationship with him, I'm like, we got to talk to Mark about what kind of guy he was. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
It's been a load of fun. I really appreciate it. It's always fun to work with you three.
Likewise to you.
And we're going to be talking again in a couple of months when the Close Encounters Man comes out. We're really looking forward to that.
Yeah, we Big Ben people have to stay together.
Hell yeah.
My dad's already got the Big Bend Village Library stoked about my book. So.
All
nice.
Right.
So,
big time.
Well, that's exciting because that means that a kid who went to the same library that we all did, there's going to be a kid going there in the next few years, and he's going to be into UFOs,
like
he's going to be into ghosts. Right. There's going to be a young weirdo going to the library, and he's going to pick up your book.
I love that thought, Mike. That is such a great image.
Yeah.
I love it.
That is really cool.
Totally
So
love
that's
it.
super exciting. And so I want to thank Allison from Milwaukee Ghosts, Mark O'Connell,
Thanks,
and
Allison.
the upcoming book, The Close Encounters Man. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too. Now, Wendy, let's finish up by talking about the song for this week. And the song for this week is influenced by Bill Paxton's most famous role.
And that role is?
Well, that's Hudson in Aliens. He's
Of course.
so memorable as Hudson in Aliens. And the thing is, when we want to talk about Bill Paxton, the first thing I thought was, oh my God, we have a demo in the hopper that's been around for a couple of years now
That fits the bill.
that perfectly fits the bill.
See what I did just there?
Oh man, you're killing me, Wen. You really are killing me. But this particular song is influenced by the ending scene in Aliens, and if you guys remember the end of Aliens, Ripley, Sigourney Weaver's character, gets into this big exoskeleton to fight the alien queen. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Everybody, and she says the famous line, "Get away from her, you." And and that's the big ending of Aliens. But the thing is, how she feels when she's inside that invincibility of being inside the exoskeleton. Sometimes when people get all juiced up and ready to fight, they need to have that feeling. And that's what this song's about. And it's called Power Loader.
Someone to take
thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at othersidepodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.
I can't believe we almost forgot. Our Patreon community. Wendy.
We never forget them.
No.
What are you talking about?
No, we will never forget you, Patreon community, because you guys don't forget about us. And I want to thank everybody who makes the show possible every week and makes it extra fun and helps us do the cool stuff, the songs, the podcast, videos, and a lot of very cool stuff.
Yes, thank you so much.
And Ned, Mr. Ned, Dr. Ned, sorry. Dr. Ned, thank you very much for your contributions and your Patreon support. We absolutely appreciate it.
And if you want to join the community, you can do that at othersidepodcast.com/donate. Always happy to see new people in there, and look forward to our next hangout, which is coming up real quickly here.
See you there. I was easily confused as a little boy.